What is going on, wrestling fans? It's I, Steve Fall. Welcome back to 10 Count Media. On today's edition, I'm talking to a man who's finishing off the season finale. That's right, Dark Side of the Ring. It's Muhammad Hassan. It's Mark Capani. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Steve. How are you?
I am doing great. And I'm especially excited for this because your career, your run is one of the most loved, hated, most controversial. It has all the feelings wrapped up in one. But Dark Side of the Ring is putting your story out there. Why now, personally, for you, are you allowing this story to get this much, I guess, more eyeballs on it?
Well, I think I'm a lot more comfortable telling the story. I'm a lot more comfortable talking about wrestling than I had been. And Dark Side of the Ring does a pretty nice job of kind of covering the heartbreak and really that sense of defeat after everything collapsed back in 2005 with the Muhammad Hassan character. And so I've done interviews here and there. I haven't done a lot of them, but Chris Van Vliet put it into the universe about the Dark Side of the Ring episode. And at the time when he had said that, I was like, absolutely not, because I watched every episode of Dark Side of the Ring, and I don't think it's ever turned out good for the subject of the TV show. But they approached me, and I got a phone call from one of the producers, and we had several conversations, kind of talked about what their idea for the show was, asked me some questions, got into some stories about the road, about the character. And it really kind of developed into something that was really just a look at the controversy, but also the person, me, behind the controversy, which I thought was interesting. It was kind of a different take, and we do spend a lot of time exploring the controversy in the show, but they do a really nice job of tying it into what was happening in the world and really trying to articulate and illustrate exactly why it became such a controversial character, and really how that character began the change and the shift that we saw in the WWE. It was the end of the Attitude Era, and they had to really rethink their portrayal of different nationalities and different circumstances. And I think it was kind of an eye-opener for them as well, that they couldn't just do what you wanted on TV anymore. So the timing was good for me, because now in my new career, my new life, I'm a lot more comfortable talking about what had happened in the past. And I think I'm a lot more willing to share because of what I learned and what I've gained. I mean, it's not a tragedy for me. It's more of a stop along the way, so to speak.
Right, of course, because obviously with you personally, your personal life with your family, your career you have now, some people don't get a second life after professional wrestling. They go on the indies and they run that into the ground, and it works out for some people. It works out for not a lot of people. But with you personally, your journey after professional wrestling, and here we are now, Dark Side of the Ring season finale. Have you actually watched the episode though?
Yeah, I did. I got to sit. They sent me a screener a few weeks ago. So I think anybody who participated in the episode, they sent them a little, it wasn't the finished product. It was still a little bit rough, but it was the gist of it. So I got to watch that. I watched it with my wife, and we ended up watching it with our kids after we had watched it first. And it was pretty surreal. It was definitely held their attention, but it was cool kind of watching it. It was just really weird. I remember just kind of staring at the TV after it was over, just kind of so hard to see your, such a big period in your life kind of in a box, so to speak, with narration. And it was really cool to kind of check out and listen to like Mavens on it, Gene Snitsky, Chris Masters, Jimmy Cornette. Really cool for me to kind of hear their perspective on my experience, as well as their experience watching what was happening with me in the WWE at the time. So I loved it. And the Dark Side of the Ring people are great. I would definitely, not that I would want to do that show in a tragic way, but I would definitely do it again. I'd work with them any day of the week. They're so friendly and accommodating, and they really did take care of me in a sense that they knew what was important for me to tell, and they knew how I wanted to tell it. And not only did they agree, but they actually were pushing for that as well. So we just kind of got along right from the get-go and had a great time doing it.
What did your kids think after watching this? Because obviously you screened it with your wife first, and then your kids see it. And to you, you're just dad, you're a silly dad or weird dad or fun dad or sports dad. What did they think? Because were they aware of how heavy your life used to be in professional wrestling?
I don't think any of them were aware of the controversy. Like, I don't think any of them were aware that, they've seen wrestling, they've seen me wrestle, they've seen, they always get a kick when someone comes up and recognizes me and wants an autograph, because that's kind of weird, right? I mean, and cool for like 5 minutes, and then I'm back to not being cool again pretty quick after that. But I don't think any of them really had an understanding about how big of an impact that character had and really what happened to that character. I don't want to say how close I was, but how close I was at being, heavyweight champ, of having a very different life and a career. And I think it was kind of startling to them. My oldest, she's 16 going on 17. I think she was the most into it. Like, I kept looking over at her because she doesn't even like movies or TV or anything except, social media.
Of course.
You want me to fast forward it? And she's like, no. And she, I think, really kind of was a little startled. She didn't really understand the extent to which all of this had happened with the controversy and the war and the London bombings and 9/11, because none of the kids really understand what we went through when that had first happened. But my son had said to me not too long after we watched it, and he's my youngest, and he just turned 11, and he said, if that would have happened, I wouldn't be here. And I think that's what he was thinking, is if you lived this different life, like, we wouldn't be here. And I said, well, that's right. And that's why I don't regret anything that happened. And I'm glad it happened that way. Like, I wouldn't change it for the world. And I'm sitting right next to the reason why. I'm sitting right next to all of the reasons why. So, go back to why I feel like I could tell that story now. It's because I have no regrets. And you know what? Anybody could say anything about my career in the WWE, and I honestly, excuse my language, could give a shit. It doesn't have that effect on me like it might have in the past. Like, say whatever you want. Like, I am where I am, and I'm happy where I am, and I'm proud of where I am. And, I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't change anything I have. Maybe I'd have a little more money. I got 4 kids. They all play sports. If anybody wants to start a GoFundMe to help pay for soccer, softball, volleyball, baseball, and basketball this year, I would gladly take a little bit of help. But no, other than that, though, I am where I am.
That's amazing to hear, because my son, I signed him up for hockey, and before, when he first signed up, I'm like, oh, okay, skates, oh, pads, oh, this, oh, that. And then suddenly you realize, oh, wait, what time is it on? It's this time in the morning on Saturdays? And then, oh, you want to do Sundays too? Who told you I want to do Sundays? Yes.
The amount of money we spend, and our kids are great athletes, and that's why. Like, they really are. I'm not just saying that. Like, we were in Cortland, New York for baseball on Friday. Then we had to go to Philadelphia for soccer Saturday, Sunday. Then we were back in Cortland on Monday for baseball. We're in Oswego next week. My daughter's playing right now in the sectionals for Liverpool versus Baldwinsville in Central New York. We're all over. We're like a 10-sport family, and it's something that the kids enjoy, and it keeps them out of trouble. And the fact that they are so athletic, we kind of feel responsible for making sure they have the opportunity to participate in all these sports. My parents wouldn't have done it. Like, there was no such thing as that back when I was a kid. But you're right, man. Like, you think the uniforms are included in the cost, and something's like, oh, $300 for the uniforms too. Like, but they do a great job, these organizations, at really developing kids more than just athletes. And we were fortunate to have some very good coaches that our kids work with that, really kind of took them on, and we look at more as friends and mentors to our kids. So it's worth it. It's expensive, but it is definitely worth it.
Yeah, it's expensive. It's expensive to have a great mentor in this world, I guess,
Yeah.
With the door opening, though, with Dark Side of the Ring, do you feel like there's an opportunity, say, for you to pop into a random Royal Rumble as your character, or you don't want that to ever happen?
No, I don't, never. For a few reasons. One, the WWE would never bring that character back after everything that had happened with that character. I don't foresee them ever wanting to bring that name back out there. And I would never do it. We cover a lot of ground about how insensitive that character became in Dark Side of the Ring. But for what I do now, don't forget, I am the director of human resources in a city school district. So it would be inappropriate, insensitive, and honestly, I would never do it to begin with. I was very much against it. I still do signings once in a while, and I always say before I do it, just so anybody who is booking, understands that I'm not going out there looking like Muhammad Hassan. Like, I'm going out there in jeans and a t-shirt looking like Mark Capani, but signing the name Muhammad Hassan. And if you're okay with that, then I'll do it. If you're not, then I understand. But that character is dead. It was killed by The Undertaker in 2005, viciously on television. But in spirit, that is 2005. This is 2025. To try to do that again would be insensitive and really definitely not something that would be good for my career.
Yeah. I was just wondering, though, now that I think about it, did you ever have an action figure?
Yeah.
During the timing, or does it come after? Your
No, I
cushion?
had one during the time. We got a couple around the house. I think you can still get them on eBay for like 94 cents.
I think they're
They're
more.
not very expensive.
I thought you were to say $940. Like, I'm not doubting that.
No, I don't know how much they are, but yeah, no, I still had a few. I had an action figure. It was a really cool experience having that done. I think we were in Canada when it got done, but the way they used to do it 20 years ago is you kind of sit in a truck, then they'd spin you and really kind of laser and kind of 3D print your face with whatever technology they had back then. But yeah, no, I have an action figure. I was on some video games. Nothing that my kids are into right now, but
No, they don't. Yeah, they don't want to play something that happened, 15 years ago. Like, yeah, that's not cool. I don't want to play a video game that happened 15 years ago. Yuck.
The graphics are definitely not as good as they are now.
So. No, the graphics you think when you're a kid, like Mario, you look at Mario as a kid and you're like, oh, look at this. You can't get better than this. And then, here we are 30 years later. So if there was a Legends contract dropped in your lap from the WWE, would you sign it? Because from what we're discussing is you don't want that character to see the light of the day. They probably don't want it to see it either. But at the same time, Sergeant Slaughter, Iraqi sympathizer, there's a way to turn this around somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I would be open to it, depending on what they had in mind. I know, like I said, I don't think that there's any interest in them as far as marketability to bring back the guy who played Muhammad Hassan, but that would be pretty much all they could do. Because like I said, I know they don't want that character back on TV. That character, again, the portrayal of that character, and it was off TV for a reason, and I wouldn't do it either way. But yeah, if they ever want to bring me back as Mark Kapani, formerly known as the guy who played Muhammad Hassan, and I would totally be open to it. Definitely a part of my life that I miss. Definitely something that I think about, not all the time, but I do think about. Someone had asked me, about what you miss the most, and I think what I miss the most is just stepping out into that level of a crowd reaction. And being able to control the crowd and having that being the center of attention, but it's wanted. Like, I'm not the kind of person to be loud in a room that wants everybody looking at me. But when you're out there, that's your job and that's what you do. And I think it's kind of that release and that escape. So in that sense, I'd be open to trying and doing anything. But I don't know if that would ever have the opportunity. And if I don't, I don't. It's nothing that I lose sleep over,
Of course. Before we wrap this up about your episode with Vice TV and the season finale of Dark Side of the Ring, I keep seeing the trailer pop up too, and obviously the episodes out there is where you see they're talking about this was 3 years after 9/11, and I'll be like, okay, is that what we're going with in this? Because in reality, 3 years after 9/11, that's a long time. Obviously in America we were still angry, we were still upset. Even today's world, we're still upset, but yet I would say, was it too soon for your character, or you were so good at portraying your character no one could figure out? Black and white, they were like, I am hooked in on this guy and I don't like him for what he's saying.
I don't know if it was too soon. I think the character definitely blurred the lines between wrestling and reality. I think a lot of people had a hard time because what the character was saying was real. And there have been plenty of foreign characters in the past, and a lot of them really did touch a nerve. And there's a lot of heat that they generated. Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, Sergeant Slaughter, they were heat magnets. But I think with the raw and realness of 9/11, it generated a lot of hate and a lot of feelings that people had a hard time rationalizing because no one wanted to admit that they felt differently about Arab people. And some people obviously didn't care, but the character definitely touched a nerve because of what he was saying versus what he was doing. And I don't think it was too soon. I think it might have been too late because the world was changing around the WWE, and suddenly things like that weren't looked at as entertainment anymore. They became too raw, too real. And Muhammad Hassan kind of got trapped within that world of, is this fake? Is this wrestling? Is this guy, he's Italian, but what he's saying is insensitive and it's disgusting. It was kind of cancel culture. It was really kind of early on. Like, there was no opportunity to change that character or to change what he was saying. It was, get this character off of television. We don't want to see him anymore. So I think, 20 years prior to that character would have been a heat magnet and would have been shutting arenas down, but the world changed, and rightfully so. I mean, I think we live in a better world than we did back then.
Of course. And, and now the world get to see your full story on Dark Side of the Ring. Of course, they've had so many episodes that I've always watched, and this is one that I'm interested in as well, because the history of you and the history of your character and the person you are in real life and the person you are today completely different. But again, it's always a pleasure talking to you, Mark, about your history, the past, the present, and the future. And of course, Vice City, you got to check it out. Dark Side of the Ring season finale